My name is Rebecca Potts. This is my testimony of what happened to me during the 17 minutes and 25 seconds I was clinically dead. I'm sharing this not to frighten you, but because I believe God gave me a second chance for a reason, to warn others about the reality of hell and the infinite mercy of heaven. Depression is a monster that consumes you from within. It whispers lies that burrow into your mind until they feel like truths. It had been my constant companion since I was 14 years old. Therapists diagnosed me with major depressive disorder and prescribed countless medications, but nothing seemed to lift the heavy veil that had settled over my life. That night, November 12th, I had reached my breaking point. It wasn't my first attempt. 3 years earlier, I had swallowed a handful of pills, but my roommate found me in time. This night was different. I was determined. More pills, more alcohol. No chance of rescue. I sat on my bedroom floor, back against the wall, a bottle of vodka beside me and several prescription bottles scattered around. I had already swallowed most of the pills, washing them down with burning gulps of alcohol. My vision was starting to blur, and a strange numbness spread through my limbs. I wasn't afraid anymore. I felt nothing but a dull relief that the pain would finally end. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was apologizing to. My family? God? Myself? The words slurred as they left my lips. As consciousness began to slip away, I had a moment of clarity, a flash of regret. What if I was wrong? What if death wasn't the end? What if there was something worse waiting for me? But it was too late. The darkness closed in, and I felt myself falling. The first thing I became aware of was that I was floating. I could see my body slumped against the wall, head tilted at an unnatural angle, eyes half open but unseeing. I felt no connection to that shell beneath me. It looked small and pitiful, like a discarded doll. I wasn't touching anything, not the floor, not the walls. I hovered near the ceiling, looking down at the scene of my death. Strange how calm I felt, observing myself from above. A detached curiosity replaced the despair that had driven me to this point. I tried to touch the light fixture hanging from the ceiling, but my hand passed through it. That's when I realized I wasn't in my physical body anymore. I looked down at what I thought were my hands. They appeared solid to me, but they had no effect on the physical world. There was a gentle tug, pulling me upward. For a moment, I thought, this is it. The peaceful transition I've heard about in near-death stories. A tunnel of light, loved ones waiting, that's what I expected. I was wrong. The tug became violent, like being caught in a powerful current. I was yanked through the ceiling, through the roof, into the night sky, but not upward toward light. I was being pulled downward, through the earth itself. The walls of reality seemed to tear away, revealing a chasm of empty blackness beneath everything I had ever known. Terror seized me. This wasn't a gentle passage. This was a descent. I wanted to scream, but I had no lungs to fill with air, no vocal cords to vibrate. Yet somehow, I was aware of my own silent screaming as I plummeted through layers of existence. The fall seemed endless. Time lost all meaning as I tumbled through nothingness. Then, in the distance, I saw something that made my soul recoil. A red glue, sickly and pulsating, growing larger as I approached. The smell hit me first. Sulfur, decay, burning flesh. How could I smell without a body? Yet the stench was overwhelming, more real than any physical sensation I'd experienced in life. The heat came next, not the warmth of a fire on a cold night, but the scorching blast of an opened furnace, singeing what I perceived to be my skin. I slowed my descent, hovering above what appeared to be a vast landscape of torment. Below me stretched a terrain of sharp black rocks and pools of flame. The sky, if it could be called that, was a churning mass of dark clouds shot through with veins of red lightning. And there were people. So many people. Their screams formed a terrible chorus that seemed to penetrate my very being. They wandered across the burning landscape, their forms twisted and charred, yet somehow never consumed. They reached out to one another but found no comfort in the contact. Each was utterly alone in their suffering. I knew with a certainty that transcended rational thought that I was looking at hell. As I hovered above this nightmare landscape, a force pulled me down until my feet touched the scorching ground. The pain was immediate and all-consuming. I tried to lift my feet to escape the burning, but I couldn't move. I was anchored to this place. A voice, terrible and beautiful at once, spoke, though not with sound. The words formed directly in my mind. "You chose this," it said. "This is the path you made for yourself." I wanted to argue, to say I didn't understand, that I didn't deserve this. But the truth of the statement crushed me. I had chosen to end my life, to reject the gift I had been given. In that moment, I understood that suicide wasn't an escape from pain. It was a doorway to something far worse. Figures approached me from the shadows. They weren't human, not entirely. They had forms similar to people, but twisted. Their features distorted like reflections in a broken mirror. Their eyes held no compassion, no mercy, only hunger. "Another one of them hissed, reaching toward me with elongated fingers. "They never learn." I tried to back away, but other hands caught me from behind. They began to pull me in different directions, as if fighting over a prize. Their touch was acid on my soul. "Stop," I begged. "Please," they laughed. A sound like breaking glass, and pulled harder. I felt myself beginning to tear apart, not physically, but in some fundamental way. My very essence was being shredded. Through the agony, a realization formed. These weren't demons, as I had imagined them. These were human souls who had given themselves fully to evil in life, now transformed by their choices into something inhuman. They had become instruments of torture for newer arrivals. "You belong with us now," one whispered, its breath like ice despite the surrounding heat. "Forever." That word, forever, echoed through the chambers of my consciousness. This wasn't a temporary punishment. There was no reprieve, no eventual release. This was eternity. Terror unlike anything I had ever known consumed me. In life, I had thought I understood despair. I had believed my depression was the lowest point possible. I was wrong. True despair was knowing that this torment would never end, that there was no escape, no rescue coming. I began to remember my life, not in flashes, but in painful, extended scenes. Every moment I had wasted, every person I had hurt, every opportunity to love that I had rejected. But most painful of all were the memories of moments when I had felt God reaching for me and I had turned away. Sunday school as a child, where I had learned about Jesus but dismissed the stories as fairy tales. A campus minister who had invited me to a service during my darkest days at college, whom I had mocked behind her back. A Bible given to me by a well-meaning aunt that I had never opened, left to gather dust on a shelf. Each memory was a knife through my soul. I had been given so many chances, and I had rejected them all. One of the creatures leaned close. "He can't hear you here," it said, seeming to read my thoughts. "You're beyond his reach now. You chose us instead." Something broke inside me then. Not hope. Hope was already gone. What broke was my resistance. I had done this to myself. This was what I deserved. I stopped struggling and surrendered to the hands that pulled me deeper into the abyss. The landscape shifted around me, and I found myself in a narrow chasm. The walls rose so high that I could barely see the red glow of the sky above. Here, the heat was replaced by a penetrating cold that seemed to freeze my soul. The screams were distant now, replaced by whispers that came from the very rock around me. I wasn't alone in this place. Shadows moved along the walls. Human shapes curled into themselves, rocking back and forth in endless solitary anguish. Unlike the souls I had seen before, these weren't interacting with each other. Each was sealed in a private cell of torment, trapped within memories of their own making. I approached one of them, a woman who appeared to be about my age. She didn't seem to notice me. Her eyes stared blankly ahead as tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," she repeated in an endless litany. I reached out to touch her, to offer some comfort, but my hand passed through her shoulder. She was both there and not there, just as I was. "You can't help her," came a voice behind me. "No one can help anyone here." I turned to find a figure standing nearby. Unlike the twisted creatures from before, this one appeared almost human, a man in what looked like ordinary clothes. Unremarkable except for his eyes, which held a terrible emptiness. "She's been saying that for what you would call centuries," he said, nodding toward the woman. "She killed herself too, left 3 children behind. Now she watches them suffer over and over and over again, unable to reach them, unable to change what happened." I backed away from him. "Who are you?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just another resident. Been here longer than most. I've learned the rules." "Rules? Oh yes, even hell has rules." He gestured around the chasm. "This place is designed perfectly. Each soul gets exactly what they earned." For her, he nodded at the weeping woman. "It's seeing the consequences of her choice for eternity. For others, it's different. But always perfect. Always exactly what they most deserve." "What about me?" I whispered. "What do I deserve?" His empty eyes seemed to look through me. "You'll find out. We all do." As if his words were a signal, the whispers from the walls grew louder. They weren't random noises. They were speaking to me directly. "Nobody loved you because you were unlovable. Your death was a relief to everyone who knew you. God abandoned you long ago. You were right to end it all. You belong here." Each whisper felt like a nail driven into my soul because each one articulated thoughts I'd had in life. These weren't new torments. They were my own beliefs amplified and turned against me. The man watched me with detached interest. "The voices tell each soul exactly what they already believe about themselves," he explained. "No lies needed here. Your own truth becomes your torture." I pressed my hands against my ears, but it made no difference. The whispers bypassed my senses and spoke directly to my consciousness. "Make them stop," I begged. "They never stop," the man said. "That's the point." He began to walk away, deeper into the shadows. I found myself following him, desperate not to be left alone with the whispers. "Why are you here?" I asked. "What did you do?" He stopped and turned, his expression unreadable. "Same as most. I made myself god of my own life. Decided I knew better than my creator." His mouth twisted in a bitter smile. "Turns out, I didn't." "Is there any way out?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Out?" He laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the chasm. "We're not in a prison, Rebecca. We're in a grave, the grave we dug for ourselves." He tilted his head. "How do you think you escape from a choice that's already been made?" The reality of his words crushed me. This wasn't a temporary state. This wasn't a punishment to be endured before moving on. This was the destination, the end of the road. "So this is forever," I said, the full weight of that word finally sinking in. "Forever," he agreed. "Unless." He trailed off, looking upward. "Unless what?" I demanded, grabbing his arm. Unlike the woman before, he was solid to my touch. "Nothing," he said, pulling away. "Just an old story, not worth mentioning." "Tell me," I was screaming now, my voice joining the cacophony of suffering that permeated this realm. He studied me for a long moment. "There are rumors," he finally said, "of souls being called back, pulled out of here before they fully belong to this place. But it's rare. It has to be." He seemed to search for the right word. "Authorized." "By who?" His eyes flicked upward again. "By him." "God? You mean God can take people out of here?" The man's face hardened. Don't say that name in this place. He looked around nervously, as if expecting something to happen. But yes, sometimes, if it's not really your time, if your choice isn't final in his eyes, he can call you back. Hope, a dangerous, fragile thing, flickered in the darkness of my despair. How do I reach him? How do I ask? The man's laugh was bitter. You don't, that's the point. Down here, prayers die before they leave your lips. He doesn't hear you anymore. You have to be called. And almost no one is. The hope wavered, but didn't extinguish completely. But it's possible. Possible, yes, likely. He shook his head. I've been here for what you would call centuries, and I've seen maybe 3 souls called back. Don't count on it. Before I could respond, the ground beneath us began to tremble. The walls of the chasm shook, and the whispers turned to terrified shrieks. What's happening? I cried. The man's face showed fear for the first time. Something's coming, something big. He turned and fled, disappearing into the shadows. The trembling intensified. Cracks appeared in the walls of the chasm, leaking a viscous, dark fluid that looked like oil but smelled like blood. The souls trapped in the walls began to scream in earnest now, their private torments forgotten in the face of this new terror. I tried to run, but the ground had become like quicksand, holding me in place. The darkness around me seemed to thicken, becoming almost solid. It pressed against me from all sides, suffocating what felt like my ability to exist. Then I heard it, a roar that wasn't physical but spiritual, a sound made not by a voice but by pure malevolence. Something was approaching, something ancient and terrible. In that moment, I understood that what I had experienced so far was merely the outskirts of hell. The true horror lay deeper, and it was coming for me. I closed my eyes and did the one thing I had been told was impossible in this place. I prayed. God, I whispered into the darkness. I don't deserve your help. I rejected you in life. I threw away your gift. I deserve this place. But if you can hear me, if there's any chance at all, please. The words wouldn't come. What could I possibly ask for? Forgiveness seemed too much. Rescue seemed impossible. In the end, all I could manage was the simplest, most honest prayer. I'm sorry. The darkness pressed closer. The roaring grew louder. I could feel a presence approaching, something so evil that even the demons feared it. I'm sorry, I repeated, no longer expecting an answer, just needing to say the words. I was wrong. About everything. I see that now. The ground beneath me began to give way. I was sinking, being pulled down toward whatever horror awaited below. I'm sorry, and then, cutting through the darkness like a blade of pure energy, came a voice. Not a whisper, not a thought, but a voice that shook the very foundations of that terrible place. Rebecca. The sinking stopped. The roaring ceased. The darkness recoiled. Rebecca Potts. My name. Someone was calling my name. Not just someone. I knew that voice, though I had never heard it before. It resonated with a power that made the forces around me shrink back in what could only be described as fear. You do not belong here yet. Light, brilliant, blinding light tore through the ceiling of the chasm. It wasn't gentle or warm. It was searing, terrifying in its intensity. The souls around me screamed and covered their faces. The man who had spoken to me earlier pressed himself against the wall, trying to escape its radiance. But for me, though it burned, the light was also strangely welcoming. It cut through the oppressive darkness like it wasn't there, reaching for me with tendrils of pure energy. The choice is not yet final. The voice came from the light itself. It wasn't cruel, but it wasn't gentle either. It was absolute, a declaration of truth that could not be questioned. One of the tendrils of light reached me, wrapping around what I perceived to be my wrist. Its touch burned, not with the destructive heat of hell, but with a purifying fire that seemed to strip away layers of my being. Not yet, the voice repeated. softer now, but no less powerful. You still have a choice to make. The tendril pulled, lifting me from the clutches of the quicksand. I rose toward the light, the screams and roars of hell fading below me. The last thing I saw was the man's face, watching me with an expression that might have been hope on anyone else. Then I was rising faster and faster, the chasm and its horrors shrinking beneath me until they were just a distant red glow, then a pinprick, then nothing at all. I was rushing upward through darkness, then through what seemed like layers of reality itself. The light surrounded me completely now, carrying me rather than pulling me. I had no sense of a body anymore. I was simply consciousness being drawn upward by a force beyond comprehension. The ascent slowed, and I found myself in a place that wasn't a place, a vast emptiness that somehow felt full of potential. There was no landscape, no features I could identify, just infinite space filled with soft, diffuse light. Before me stood a figure. I cannot adequately describe what I saw. Human language lacks the vocabulary for such a being. It had a form that resembled a person, but it was composed entirely of light. Not the harsh, searing light that had torn through hell, but a gentle, pulsing radiance that shifted between colors I had never seen before and cannot name. "Rebecca," the figure said, and I recognized the voice that had called me from the depths. I tried to speak, but I had no voice here. Instead, my thoughts formed words that the being heard. "Are you God?" I asked. The figure's light pulsed. "I am a messenger," it replied, "a servant of the Most High. An angel." I was speaking to an angel. "Why am I here?" I asked. "Why did you bring me out of that place?" "Your time has not yet come," the angel said. "So I'm forgiven?" "That is not for me to say, but you are being given another chance to choose. To see more clearly before your final decision is made." I didn't understand. "What decision? Isn't it too late?" "Your physical body has not yet perished. Time moves differently in the spiritual realm. What seems like hours here is mere minutes in the world you left behind. Your body still clings to life, though barely." Hope surged within me. "You mean I can go back? If that is what you choose?" "Of course I choose that. Anything is better than that place." The angel's light pulsed in what might have been sadness. "Is it? You would return to the same pain, the same struggles, the same darkness that drove you to take your life. Nothing there has changed." The hope faltered. The angel was right. Going back meant returning to depression, to loneliness, to the crushing weight that had driven me to suicide in the first place. "Then what's the point?" I asked. "Why offer me the chance to go back just to suffer again?" "Because now you understand what awaits those who reject life's gift, and because there is another path, one you have not yet tried." "What path?" The angel gestured, and the emptiness around us shifted. Suddenly, we were standing in what appeared to be a vast garden. Not the manicured kind humans create, but a wild, perfect landscape that seemed to radiate life from every leaf and petal. The air, if it was air, felt rich and invigorating. Colors were deeper, smells more complex, sounds more harmonious than anything I had experienced on Earth. "Is this heaven?" I whispered, the possibility stealing my breath. "This is but the outermost edge," the angel said. "A glimpse only. No human soul still bound to flesh can enter further." Even as just a glimpse, it was overwhelming. Peace saturated every molecule of the place. Not the empty piece of numbness that I had sought in drugs and alcohol, but a vibrant, living peace that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. "I want to stay here," I said. The very thought of leaving this garden for the pain of my earthly life was unbearable. "That is not one of your choices," the angel said gently. "Not yet. Your appointed time has not arrived." Sorrow filled me. "Then why show me this at all? Why let me see what I can't have?" "So that you might know what awaits those who endure. So that you might have hope to carry back with you into the darkness." Hope. Such a small word for what I felt in that garden. More than an emotion, it was a lifeline. You said there was another path, I reminded the angel. What is it? The being's light brightened. The path of surrender. Surrender? To what? To whom? Not to what, but to whom? To the one who made you. To the one who loves you beyond your comprehension. To the one who sent me to bring you from the depths before your time. You mean become a Christian? The concept felt foreign to me. I had always viewed Christianity as a crutch for the weak, a collection of outdated rules and judgmental attitudes. I mean, recognize the truth that you have always known in your heart, that you were created for a purpose, that your life has meaning, that you are loved with an everlasting love. As the angel spoke, something stirred within me, a memory from childhood, a Sunday school class where a teacher had told us that God loved us so much that he sent his son to die in our place. I had dismissed it then as a fairy tale. Now, standing at the border of heaven, I wondered if it might be the only truth that mattered. If I go back, if I choose this path, will things be better? Will the depression go away? The angel's light pulsed in what might have been compassion. I cannot promise you that your struggles will vanish. The world remains broken, and you remain human. But I can promise you this: you will never face those struggles alone again. And when your appointed time truly comes, the angel gestured to the garden around us, will be waiting for you. I considered this not a promise of an easy life, but a promise of a meaningful one. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. I don't know how, I admitted. I don't know how to find God. You already have, the angel said. The moment you called out from the depths, you were heard. The moment you said, I'm sorry, you were forgiven. The rest is simply walking the path that has been prepared for you. The garden around us began to fade, the colors dimming, the vibrant life receding. What's happening? I asked, panic rising within me. Your body is failing, the angel said. Your time grows short. You must decide. Terror gripped me, not the fear of hell this time, but the fear of returning to a life of pain, to struggles I wasn't sure I could face. The garden was almost gone now, fading into mist. Soon, only the angel and I remained in the vast emptiness. Choose, Rebecca Potts, the angel said. Choose life or choose death, but choose knowing the full truth of each path. In that moment, with the memory of hell's torment still fresh and the glimpse of heaven's peace still lingering, the choice seemed obvious. And yet, the thought of returning to my broken body, to my broken life, filled me with dread. I'm afraid, I confessed. Fear is natural, the angel said. But remember, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The words, though unfamiliar to me, resonated with truth. I took a spiritual breath, I'm not sure how else to describe it, and made my choice. I want to live, I said. I want to try this other path. I want to know God. The angel's light brightened until it was almost too brilliant to behold. So be it. The emptiness around us began to spin, faster and faster. The angel's form blurred, becoming once again that pure light that had rescued me from the depths. Remember, the angel's voice came one last time, now seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. You are loved. You are never alone. And when you call, you will be heard. Then the spinning became a plummeting, but upward rather than downward. I was rushing back toward life, toward my body, toward a future I couldn't see, but now faced with something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, pain. That was my first sensation. Not the spiritual agony of hell, but physical pain. My stomach cramping, my throat burning, my head pounding, light stabbed at my eyes, harsh and clinical. I heard voices, urgent but distant, as if coming through water. Gradually, the voices became clearer. I realized I was lying on my back on a hard surface. Something was covering my mouth and nose, pushing air into my lungs. Hands moved over my body, checking, probing, working. I tried to speak, but my throat felt raw, and something was blocking it. I gagged, panic rising. She's fighting the tube. That's good. Let's see if she can breathe on her own. More hands, more movement. The obstruction in my throat was removed, leaving a trail of fire behind it. I coughed violently, each spasm sending new waves of pain through my body. A face appeared above me, a woman in scrubs, her expression a mixture of professional concern and something like wonder. "Rebecca, can you hear me? You're in the hospital. You're going to be okay." Hospital, not hell, not heaven. Just the ordinary physical world I had tried to leave behind. My whole life. The phrase struck me with new force. Not just years to endure, but a gift to embrace, a chance to choose a different path. "Is there a Bible?" I asked suddenly, surprising myself as much as the nurse. She looked startled. "A Bible? Yes, I need to read something." "I'll see what I can find," she said, clearly confused but willing to humor what she probably saw as a strange but harmless request. When she left, I was alone with my thoughts. The memories of my journey were still vivid, but already I could feel them beginning to soften around the edges, like a dream upon waking. The terror of hell, the peace of that heavenly garden, the commanding presence of the angel, all were starting to feel less immediate. But one thing remained crystal clear. I had been given a second chance. Not just at life, but at understanding what life was for. The nurse returned with a small Bible, its cover worn from frequent handling. "It's from the chapel," she explained. "You can borrow it for now." I took it with trembling hands, unsure even what I was looking for. I had never read the Bible before, had no idea where to start. I opened it randomly, and my eyes fell on a passage. "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." The words seemed to leap off the page, speaking directly to my experience. The thief, depression, despair, the lie that death was an escape, had indeed come to steal and destroy. But there was another way, a way to life, not just existence, but abundant life. I closed the Bible, holding it against my chest as tears began to flow. Not tears of despair this time, but of relief, of gratitude, of hope. I had been to hell, I had glimpsed heaven, and now I was back, with a story to tell and a life to live differently. My name is Rebecca Potts. I died for 17 minutes and 25 seconds. What I saw changed me forever. This is my testimony.